Am I overtraining? That's a good question to be asking yourself. So overtraining is basically placing higher demands on yourself than you're capable of recovering from, right? The thing to note is that the you that is capable of is more than just a body, right? It's all of the layers which make us who we are. The question that we need to be asking ourselves is that, am I training more than what feels true to myself, right? All right, before we get into this, let's go over a few of the physical things that you might be feeling and the ways that you can be sure that you are probably overtraining, right? The obvious one is that you feel sore. You might decline in your performance compared to what you're used to. Your recovery feels like it takes ages. You just feel like you don't get that fresh feeling of, like I'm ready for a workout as you get into it. Specifically, your joints feel achy. Usually it's just like an overall kind of fatigue in your body. Like your legs might feel just heavy in general. Just feels like you're carrying stuff around. The quality of sleep can decline. You might be waking up plenty more than you usually do wake up at night. Maybe you just don't feel refreshed after sleeping, right? So that ties in with the feeling that we can't relax, feeling of tensions building up and not being able to let go, as well as negative emotions might increase more than usual. For me, that was just becoming way more angry than I usually was. Also, people just sometimes get more confused or they get sadder, more depressed, So those are things to also watch out for. So the reason I say, does it feel like I'm training more than what's true to me, is because left alone to its own devices, right, the body is capable of incredible feats. If it's put in survival mode, it will show up and perform. It will get us through incredible things, right? But the truth is that we don't have to be living in constant survival mode, right? There's a lot of things, our needs are met for a lot of us to many degrees. So the question is, why am I putting these stressors on my body, right? I often forget that because I use training, for example, for increased mental clarity that I get from it, just from overall feeling really well. I forget that it's still a stressor on my body, right? And if I'm not investing the same amount of effort, time, energy into recovery, well, I'm gonna get a serious imbalance. The important thing is to look at the entirety of who we are, right? So look at your mental well-being, like, am I already stressed out? Am I already anxious? And then I'm going to work out. That might help for a certain amount of time, but then it depends what kind of style of movement are you doing? Are you doing super intense weight training, which creates more tension that might lead to an overload of tension in your life, Maybe you're just processing a lot of emotions, going through a rough patch, you had a breakup, you're just like, processing a lot of stuff from your childhood, whatever it is, right? There's already a lot of demands on our entire system. So it's worth looking at, hey, is there room, is there space for more right now? Another thing which we have to look at is our environment. Is the food that we're eating nourishing us, or is it already in itself placing demands on our body, right? It have a high cost of being digested, of being assimilated in our body. Same with, for example, our work environment. Do we feel like we flourish and we really enjoy, and does it basically provide us with energy, or does it feel like we're drained at the end of our workday? The same with people, are we in healthy relationships? Are we in toxic relationships? What we need to look at is there space in my life right now for more demands? Can I accommodate for growth right now? Because there is a cost to growth. That's something we can't forget. And so the thing is that training is really a very personal thing, and so is overtraining. And I know it's super difficult. I know this for myself, that because we live in a comparative world, right? It is very difficult to have an equal amount or larger trust in ourselves and what our body is telling us in relative to what the outside world is telling us, right? But the truth is that the trust in ourselves needs to be larger than the urge to compare. That's the bottom line truth of how to avoid overtraining. So in some way, our body is very much our own thing. It's basically processing what we're doing with it. Our mind is something which I'm not so sure if we really live alone in our minds, right? We process so much of our social behavior through our mind, right? And I'm sure in our physical reality as well, to a certain extent. The point is that we need to trust the signals that our body gives us more than what our mind is telling us we should be doing, right? And that's basically the difference between living in the reality of what is in comparison to the reality of what could be, right? I could be training more. I could be training harder. But the reality is that I feel fucking smoked. In the end, this is all about learning the language that your body is speaking with you. Understand that there's a communication going on between our body giving us signals and then what we choose to act upon. The beauty is that the more I train, the more I understand the value of being very honest with myself, being very clear, why exactly am I doing this? In order to avoid all the things we want to be avoiding, right? The negative consequences from creating a lot of tension and all these things is that our body needs to know exactly why it's putting in all this extra effort, right? Because honestly, you could survive by just sitting around here. So the point is to be very clear on what are my coordinates, right? And then to align yourself with those coordinates. If you just want a healthy, functional body, right? Then exercise moderately. There's a lot of people out there which can help you achieve that. But on the other hand, there's people like me who want to, I want to get the maximum exposure that I can. I basically want to walk that line of not overtraining, but training to my maximum as much as I can possibly do without the negative consequences, because I want to help people. I want to learn as much as possible, as quickly as possible, in order that I can help other people progress faster, get better, not make the same mistakes that I've made. So if you have clear coordinates and you know exactly why you're doing things, then there's a lot less of a risk of overtraining. You know that your progress is coming from, consistency. It's coming from compound interest, having adequate rest, eating right, basically. So it's a whole web of factors which come together, and it's not about 100% gas all the time. So if you feel compulsive about training, there's chances for two things. Firstly, that you will benefit a lot from doing the opposite, which is resting up. And secondly, that you're trying to get some kind of external reward for something that you do. Instead of feeling strong, finding that inner strength, letting your workouts be an extension of that, you're like, I have a fear that will, fear of losing that, fear of that not being in my grips anymore, not being in my control anymore. So I need to constantly be on it. So the question to ask ourselves is, do I need these things? Do I need that external validation? Or have I gotten it before and then I still felt like I needed something more? If I don't need this, does it maybe mean that I'm wasting energy chasing something which is out of my control? Can I just be content with myself if I do absolutely nothing? Because the truth of the matter is that you don't have to do anything to be content with yourself. It's a feeling that it's created inside of yourself, even when it is as a consequence of doing something, right? But sometimes it's smarter to not do that thing, but in some other way, find a way to still, enjoy your life and be content. I think anybody which starts asking themselves these questions will automatically start to transition away from those kind of, that chase to a more sustainable, healthier relationship to themselves. Train hard on some days, and on other days, do different things. Pick up new hobbies, learn new things, and really collecting wins in completely different parts of your life will, one, make you less boring, and two, building up momentum, successes in other disciplines, right? You might, for example, be, picking up an instrument. That feeds into a success loop, which is basically like, I'm on my right path. Like I'm getting good feedback from my own feeling of, developing, of growing in all directions. And that is like pure satisfaction, really. The solution for me has been, having a greater sense of respect for when I do show up, right? To actually take some time after I train and just be thankful for what I've done, thankful for, overcoming the hurdles and getting my ass off the couch, et cetera, right? And that sense of self-respect goes a long, long, long way, because that will also mean that you're basically giving it your all, or as much as you can, in the times that you train. And overall, you need to be training less, you're training hard, and then you can invest time in recovery, you can invest time into other habits, because you're satisfied with what you have showed up for physically. You're chasing after these skills, etc. And the urge to basically be on it all the time, to be 100%, that sense of having something to prove will just reduce. It will just be not as strong as your satisfaction with yourself and what you've done. Yesterday I showed up hardcore. Today, man, I'm off. I'm gonna spend time writing, I'm gonna spend time just having a gentle walk, something else. I hope this helps. Let me know if this was interesting to you. Let me know if your own experiences with overtraining. Do you think you're overtraining right now? I would be really interested in how you bridge the gap of, needing to take a break for extended periods of time, which I know sucks ass, honestly, and then getting back onto it. How did you ramp up the intensity again, having learned from your mistakes? That would be super helpful to me as well. Drop a like, drop some comments. Adios, amigo.